Hello Fit2Thrive family. Thanks again for tuning in today. I'm really excited to bring you this next podcast on our third key to thrive, strength training. I'm also super excited as our new website launches at the end of May as we deliver our new subscription membership, which is packed with incredible resources for you for only £10 per month. It's an irresistible offer that I know you're going to love as much as we do. So June 1st, log on to our new site, www.fit2thrive.co.uk, to be one of our founding members. So with that said, let's get started on the topic of strength training. Now, bear in mind, these episodes are a brief introduction to all of our keys to thrive, and much more in-depth knowledge are provided via coaching classes for our Fit2Thrive family. So what effect does strength training have on our body? If we use resistance, which could be gravity or additional weights, to load our muscles, then after a certain point, due to either resistance or the amount of repetition, the muscles will fatigue, which is when we stop. Then, during the recovery phase, the muscles will adapt to improve its output and effectiveness. This is known as the law of adaptation. It basically means that we need to put our body under enough stress for it to need to adapt by releasing hormones to create that change. Repetition could be from something that you might do day to day. For example, if you're walking over a distance, you're going to repeat that pattern over and over again, and it's going to be a similar movement. Additional weight could be adding a rucksack full of weights to your back, which means the body has to work harder for each step, and you'll find you can do less repetitions or steps due to this load. Both of these increases either your muscle size, power, or endurance over time. When we look to increase strength, exercises should be performed to the point at which it would be difficult to do another repetition without help. This is called the SAID principle, specific adaptation to imposed demands. In this case, improving the size of the muscle fibers and or endurance of the muscles by increasing the type of muscle fibers required. Type 1, also known as slow twitch for endurance, or type 2 muscle, also known as fast twitch for power. A simple way to understand the difference between these two types of muscles is this. When you get a chance, look at a picture of an Olympic marathon athlete and then an Olympic 100-meter athlete side by side. It will be very obvious the difference in muscle fiber types. The marathon runner has a smaller and leaner body type. Their body will have a high percentage of type 1 slow twitch muscles. These muscles often work within the aerobic zone we discussed in the cardiovascular podcast. This means as long as you run at a steady enough pace, you can maintain oxygen to the muscles and they'll provide endurance, an elite athlete marathon usually lasting between 2 to 2.5 hours. These athletes or muscle types will be less powerful or explosive, but they will be lighter and capable of powering the body over longer periods. Now the sprinter, you will see, has larger, more pronounced muscles. And because of this, they will weigh more, but their body is built for power and explosive movements. Their event will not rely on the aerobic system much, but the anaerobic system, which means it has little need for oxygen, but it will only last for a maximum of about 30 to 40 seconds, and an elite sprint lasting for around 10 seconds. So we all have a percentage of both types of muscles passed to us via our genes. But if we train in a particular way using the SAID principle over a period of time, we can influence this balance one way or another depending on our need. So whatever body shape or function we want, we can create the right type and amount of muscle as long as we have the correct training plan. Hopefully that makes some sense. So what are the benefits of strength training? Well, according to the American College of Sports Medicine, strength training can prevent arthritis, some cancers, cardiovascular disease, dementia, depression, diabetes, back pain, obesity, osteoporosis, which is especially important in women over 50, and also strokes. So it's clear that to improve our chances of being healthy, strength training can definitely help. But let's look at the positive benefits of strength training rather than just what it will prevent, as it's always better to be motivated by something you want rather than something you don't want. So out and out benefits are increased aerobic fitness, improved blood glucose regulation, improved cognitive functions, bone, muscle and connective tissue strength and durability, which will help lower chance of injury, muscle strength, durability and power, looking good, improved mood and energy, and lower chances of joint issues in later life. So how much strength training should we do? You should really try to do about 2 to 3 sessions of muscle strengthening exercises a week. Examples of muscle strengthening activities include working with free weights or machines, working with resistance bands, heavy gardening such as digging and shoveling, but this has limited benefits, and bodyweight exercise, which could include something like yoga and Pilates. Now, muscle strengthening activities help maintain the ability to perform everyday tasks and slow down the rate of bone and muscle loss associated with aging. So it's a good idea to do muscle strengthening activities that work all the major muscle groups, the legs, hips, back, abdomen, chest, shoulders and arms on 2 or more days a week. So how do we build those types of muscle? Now, there are many schools of thought on the best ways to do this. But unless you're looking to really specialise in a particular area or you're training as an elite athlete, it's much better just to get the basics right than feeling lost in complex types of sets and sifting through hours of research papers suggesting confusing and sometimes completely opposing views on the same topic. So let's keep it simple so you can get a good idea on how to get started. Now, if we want to build a certain type of muscle, we can do this via the type of load we place on the muscles or the amount of repetitions we include in the plan, as we've discussed before. So, for example, if we want to build that type 1 muscle, which is more based around stamina, like the marathon runner, then we're going to want to do 3 or more sets, and then we want to do over 12 repetitions, usually between 12 to 20 repetitions. If we want to build more power, that type 2 fast twitch muscle, then we're going to want to do less sets between 1 to 3, and we want to do a higher resistance level, which means less repetitions, which is usually under 6 repetitions. Now, we could also think, well, I don't really want to be a marathon runner and I don't really want the sprinter type build. I want to have some sort of balance between the two, which is a lot of people. So if we want to have that balance, we can just find that balance between those sets and repetitions. So that would look about 3 sets, and it would look between 8 to 12 repetitions, okay? So what that means with all those sets and repetitions, it should mean that when you get to the end of, let's say, 12 repetitions, if the weight is right, you should start to feel that you can't really do much more than that last repetition, which means you'll need to rest between 2 to 3 minutes before you do the next set, because otherwise you'd find that you wouldn't be able to lift the weight again. And that means you're taking the muscle to that point of tiredness, fatigue, where it will start to adapt. You then rest that muscle for 2 to 3 minutes and you do 12 repetitions again, for argument's sake. And you're going to do that 3 times. So by the end of it, you should feel the muscles are tired, they're full of blood, and then when we start to recover, the muscles are going to try and adapt. So it's a good little framework for you to work on. So let's look at the types of training then that we can do. So we know about the different types of muscle. We know about building those types of muscles in a basic sense. And now let's look at the types of training that's actually available to us. For example, if you go into a gym and you look around the gym area, there's going to be lots of different sections that you look at. So there's going to be a sort of weight machine area. Now, they're the big fancy machines you see in the corner of gym, and sometimes will take up a lot of the floor space in a gym, which I'm sure probably lots of you have used before. And they have pros and they have cons, okay? So the pros are that they're generally safe for beginners because you're not handling too much weight. And the machine basically tells you the kind of plane of movement that you're going to move in, which means you're not picking up loose weights and dropping them or just not knowing quite what to do. They usually sit you in a seat as well to make sure your posture is the right position. So it's less likely as a beginner, as you start to just build that knowledge about lifting weights, it's going to help you and just keep you safe. Okay, and they're also very good if you're looking for what's called muscle isolation, where you're working just one muscle. For example, if you've had an injury and you're looking to do rehabilitation work on that muscle, or for bodybuilders, sometimes they'll use them because they want to just pump and make that particular muscle much bigger, so they can use those machines to isolate those muscles more easily. There are some cons though as well. So one of those is what obviously makes it safe for beginners is the limited movement, which means that the surrounding muscles then do not really assist in that exercise, and then they don't develop either. So for example, if you're using a machine and you're doing a bicep curl on a machine, then the machine is going to basically make you're only going to be able to go from the down position to the up position and then back down to the down. It won't let you move to the left, it won't let you move to the right. Well, what that means then is a lot of the surrounding muscles that would normally, if you were just using a dumbbell, for example, would have to work to keep the elbow fixed into that position by the side of your body. They're not having to do that type of work anymore. Okay, so that means that obviously everything else that's around that area then will not, the sort of what's called the synergistic muscles and the stabilizing muscles, they won't work as hard, because it isolates that particular muscle far more. So that can be a safety feature, but it can also then be a limitation. And then again, the con of that, like I said before, is it only really works one muscle. So you have to do one set of, one group of sets and repetitions of an exercise per muscle, which sometimes could take a long time because you might then have to work just the bicep, then just the tricep. And obviously going around those machines, that's a lot of machines to get around. Whereas when we move on to looking at free weights now, they have that much more cons involved in that. So they might look daunting because a lot of the time, again, when you're looking around the gym, they're always located in areas where men tend to be grunting, or you have young lads that tend to hang out in small packs. But this type of exercise is a crucial part of strength training for most of us, and it's not definitely something that shouldn't be dismissed. Now, the pros of this is that they work more muscle in one exercise. So, for example, with free weights, you can do a lot more of what's called compound exercises, which should be at the heart of most fitness programs, in my opinion. Now, compound exercises are multi-joint movements that work several muscles or muscle groups at one time. So a great example of a compound exercise is the squat exercise. Now, this engages many muscles in the lower body and core, including quadriceps, the front of your thigh, hamstrings, the back, calves, your lower leg, glutes, your bum, lower back and core muscles. So all within one exercise of doing a squat, possibly with some weight obviously on your back as well to increase that resistance, then it's working all of those muscles in one exercise that you'd have to do on a machine. You'd have to do 5, 6, 7 different machines. And on top of that, like we talked about, you then have a weight that is not stabilized by a machine. So it's a free weight. That's why it's called free weights. And that means that actually that heavy bar with weights on either side, you're having to balance. And because there's less stability in that exercise, all those synergistic muscles, all those stabilizing muscles we just discussed as a con for the weight machines are now being utilized, which is going to bring more strength. So it works the stabilizing muscles and it helps increase the strength of tendons and ligaments too. So that's another pro to it. Another pro is increased neuromuscular fitness. So the use of all these extra muscle groups and the more complex movement of a compound exercise can help with coordination. And really what this is called is kinesthetic awareness as well, which is knowing where your body is in space. So it's going to help with, like I said, coordination and balance and these different things. So it's more of a complex movement. Therefore, your neuromuscular system works harder, and it will help build stronger pathways to be able to do that exercise. Now, there are some cons as well to free weights. It's definitely not perfect because the problem with it, when you've got a more complex movement, is it takes practice to get it right in the first place. Okay, so some people will find that frustrating. A machine, you can just get on and do the movement. It pretty much tells you what to do. There's usually even an instruction on the machine. So if no one's even told, you can follow the instruction. It takes a bit of practice to get it right. So that's definitely a con. But again, with practice, it turns it into a pro basically. Another con, obviously, is because of the instability, because of the sort of load of weights, you're not protected as much. There's a higher risk of injury if the exercise isn't done correctly. So let's look at our sort of final main sort of training type, that's body weight. Now, bodyweight exercise is a great way to start training, especially if you don't have a gym membership. So working with body weight can help you get some of the basics right first. It means you can work on technique, you can improve your core strength and increase the volume of your workouts before you increase the intensity and add load. And that can be part of the specific adaptations that you might want. So this is why the military favour this type of approach in their training. You can do it in the gym, you can do it at home. So the pros are you don't really need any expensive equipment to do it in the first place. Another one is that you can do it anywhere. You can do it in your bedroom, you can do it in the office, you can do it wherever you want to. And another pro is that you can master the basics of those exercises before increasing the intensity and moving into other types of exercises. So it helps to build confidence too. One of the cons, I guess, of body weight training is really that you're always training to the weight of your body. So that means that it's difficult maybe to add extra load into it. That might be something. So really, most of the time you end up adding more repetitions, so because it's the only option. But if you're looking to increase muscle power, then obviously body weight exercise becomes more difficult. There are ways of adding more weights, but it's certainly more complex and sometimes and need extra kit and so on and so forth. So that can be a con of body weight exercise sometimes. So let's look at some of the myths of strength training. Obviously, it's something that a lot of people don't feel confident about. So one of the big barriers to strength training when people talk about it are these myths that I'm going to discuss now. And the biggest four, I guess, that I hear are the following. So the first one is I don't want to get too big, in terms of I don't want too much muscle. Now, this is something I hear from a lot of people, and it does feel like an excuse for not sort of taking on some kind of weights training plan either because they don't want to or just a misunderstanding of what it is. The truth is, unless you train the right way and you eat the right way, you won't get too big. And here's the secret why, right? It takes massive effort. So it's unlikely you'll wake up with huge muscles by accident after a few weight sessions. It's just not something that's going to happen. People don't get too big. It takes a lot of effort, a lot of work to be able to get. When you see these people on social media, you see bodybuilders, they work day in, day out, and they're always fighting to try and get that big. It's not something that's easy. So it's not something you have to worry about. So let's remember the benefits of weight training and use that as the reason why we should include it as part of our weekly training plan. So one of the second main myths that I hear is it's not ladylike to lift weights. So sometimes weight training can be a bit of a barrier for women. Now, cultural stories like it not being ladylike can be frustrating because why would keeping strong and healthy not be something that all women want to do? Now, luckily, this stereotype is starting to become less prevalent as we learn more about the benefits for women. But being toned and healthy, after all, gives a positive body image, and women for thousands of years have had to be strong. So why have we decided in the last 50 or 100 years that this is a negative thing in the first place? Personally, I love to see women empowered by feeling stronger, and in my experience, when coupled with something like martial arts as well, the confidence it can bring is freeing for the participant as they gain strength and they gain control over their body. So again, it's something that we should try to, there's something for everyone, and the concept of, it's not ladylike is not something that should hold you back. It's not something that should limit you from getting strong and getting healthy. So the third major sort of myth that I hear from people is lifting weights is difficult. Now, lifting weights is not difficult. It's a fairly basic exercise once taught the correct way. So like any skill, it should be taught and then practiced to improve technique and results basically over time. And lastly, probably another one I hear is weights are expensive. So weights can be expensive if you need to buy loads of them for home, but there are lots of other options, from body weight exercise, resistance bands, or other just key bits of kit like a few kettlebells, which can cost you very little. You don't always need all the gear just to get a good workout. So let's wrap this up and summarize then. So given what I've talked about, it's clear that strength training is for everyone. Male, female, young or old, there is a training plan that is right for you. People with particular health conditions should seek medical advice to make sure that they have a trained professional to give them guidance. But for everyone else, we have lots of options in classes or bespoke plans that will get you the results you want. Just remember the pyramid of strength training success. The base layer is body basics. So get the technique right. Bad technique can limit progress at best and it can cause massive injury at worst. So make sure this base is solid. Simplified, that means don't run before you can walk. The middle layer is progressive overload. Now this means to start to build the resistance or intensity of the exercise, which could be also repetitions, very gradually as you find the sets getting easier. To keep your body under stress basically and adaptation. This is the law of adaptation. And the top layer is specific skills. So if you have a certain outcome in mind, such as a sport, then this is the time to specialize your training plan to make it less generic and encourage your body to adapt to increase performance in your chosen area. This is the SAID principle. So like any activity, it's also important to warm up, cool down, and give your body the rest it needs so it has time to recover and go through its adaptation phases. But more on this in our 5th Key to Thrive podcast. So I hope you enjoyed this podcast. Next time we'll be discussing Key 4 functional fitness. Now, I look forward to seeing you in our community group. I would love to hear your feedback and answer any questions you might have on this topic or any others. Mastering this key alongside our previous ones of mindset and cardiovascular fitness will really start to create the all-round fitness you need to look and feel great and have a positive impact on the lives of the people around you. So see you next time and stay healthy. Thank you.